Well, welcome back to U.S. Farm Report. This weekend, big report day on Friday. So to digest the numbers, we have Pete Meyer as well as Joe Vaclavik. Pete, I'll start with you because we had a bunch of different reports that hit on Friday. Acreage, grain stocks. What was the biggest surprise for you?
I think that the small size of the grain stocks was probably a bigger surprise. We never really put much stock into the prospective plannings report because it is so early. And even when you talk to NASS does not like issuing the report. If there's one report NASS would like to get rid of, it's prospective plannings. But what are the takeaways you have? Okay, so corn acres are up about 1 million than our survey, and are up 3.4 million from last year. But it's where the acres sit. 1.3 million acres in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, which from all indications will not be able to get into the field until mid-April when the temperature breaks. Record snowpack, cold temperatures coming. Okay, 87, but it makes sense time because economically speaking, farmers should be planting corn.
Yeah, and Pete, you mentioned that your, S&P Global Commodity Insights, your survey indicated that we would see more corn acres, but it is above what the trade had even expected, Joe. But you're saying it wasn't that big of a surprise?
Compared to past instances of this report, there have been years where the trade will miss corn acres by 3 million or more than that. There have been years where the trade will miss corn stocks by 200 million, 300 million. We missed acres by 1 million in corn. We missed stocks by 70 million. This is not, there was nothing in this report that was overly surprising compared to maybe a normal prospective plantings report like this. For the trade to miss corn by 1 million, I mean, those sort of misses are to be expected in this sort of deal. So I didn't see any like real major surprises versus what the trade had estimated, at least.
Joe, but when you look at these acres and the prospective plantings report, which crop do you think maybe those numbers could grow from now until we get the new numbers in June? And which one do you think maybe is at risk of losing some acres?
I feel like there's a big divide in the corn situation versus the soybean situation. If you take these acreage numbers, you plug them into the balance sheets, you mess around with the stocks and kind of plug in what's out there. I feel like the soybean balance sheet has the potential to get incredibly tight, and the corn situation has the potential to become incredibly loose. But again, that's assuming that these acreage numbers are correct. And I'd probably go with Pete's notion that this is going to be about the highest corn acreage number that you see.
Pete, USDA also has principal acres up quite a bit. Do you agree when you put all of these acreage numbers together? Do you agree with what USDA is thinking this year?
Well, I'd love to see what they're using for prevent plant. I mean, we're using 3 million for prevent plant, and that's why we don't even get close to the number they're talking about. Economically, we understand. I mean, you understand with these prices the way they are, but like we talked about a little bit earlier, the economics suggest the corn. But when we look at last year, when we had decent sized corn, granted the acres went down at the end of the year given what happened in Nebraska and some of the states that experienced heavy drought. But we're 30 cents below the crop insurance price in corn at the moment. Last year at this point, we were $1 above the crop insurance price. So I'm with Joe. I think the corn acres come down a bit, depending on the weather as well. They may plant some soybeans. But as far as the whole acreage pie, I mean, look, cotton acres are down. Spring wheat acres are going to be down. We think spring wheat acres could be as low as 10 million. The USDA came out today, I think, around 10.6. The cotton number looks right. You've got heavy winter wheat acres, which in some parts of Kansas will fail and will be planted with double crop beans on top of it. So, we're not making land in this country, and I really have a hard time when we start to talk about principal crops being planted in this many acres.
All right, Joe, now that we do have this prospective plantings report, now that we do have the grain stocks report, where does the trade's focus shift?
I mean, weather would be the obvious answer, but I think there's some things on the demand side of the balance sheet. How much more corn does China want to buy? When you start to look at the lower corn stocks number that USDA published today, okay, so pair the lower corn stocks number with the idea that USDA may now be understating corn exports if this China demand thing continues. I mean, you could be looking at a drastically lighter old crop carryout number for corn, which is your beginning stocks for the new crop balance sheet, which we're just kind of getting started with these acreage numbers. So I think the demand side is important, and weather, ultimately come June, July will be the biggest factor.
All right, we need to take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on U.S. Farm Report.